The Promise Keeper, A Marine's Love Story. Part 1, Deployment. Scene 1, the Cortez home, morning. The sunrise painted streaks of amber and rose across the San Diego sky as Stephanie Cortez stood at the kitchen window, her hands wrapped around a cooling mug of coffee. Behind her, she could hear Michael zipping his duffel bag, each sound like a small knife to her heart. "Steph?" His voice was gentle. That tone he used when he knew she was hurting, but trying to hide it. She turned, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. At 24, Stephanie still looked younger than her years, with long dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, and deep brown eyes that revealed every emotion she tried to conceal. Shy by nature, she'd spent most of her life letting others take the lead. But Michael had drawn her out, made her feel seen. Staff Sergeant Michael Cortez crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, his Marine uniform crisp and imposing, but his eyes, those warm hazel eyes, were soft with love and concern. At 6'2", with broad shoulders and a quiet strength, Michael commanded respect wherever he went. But here, with her, he was simply the man who'd promised before God to love her forever. "I'm okay," Stephanie whispered. But her voice cracked on the second word. "No, you're not. And that's okay too." He pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face against his chest, breathing in his scent, soap and coffee, and something uniquely Michael. They'd only been married a year. One beautiful, sacred year of learning each other, building their home, growing together in faith. And now he was leaving for a classified mission. 6 months, maybe more. Somewhere she couldn't follow, couldn't even know about. "I prayed all night," Stephanie admitted, her voice muffled against his uniform. "I asked God why he would bring us together, just to separate us." Michael gently tilted her chin up, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "You know what I think? I think God is teaching us both something we need to learn. Me, to trust him with my most precious treasure, you. And you," he smiled tenderly, "to discover just how strong you are when you lean on him. I don't feel strong. David didn't feel strong facing Goliath. Gideon didn't feel strong with his tiny army. But God," Michael's voice grew firm with conviction, "God is strong in our weakness. That's what makes faith real, baby. Not the absence of fear, but trusting him in spite of it." Stephanie nodded, drawing strength from his certainty. Michael's faith was like bedrock, unshakable, immovable. It was one of the first things that had attracted her to him 2 years ago when they'd met at church. "Listen to me carefully," Michael said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "If anything happens, if you ever need help and you can't reach me, I want you to call Sergeant Major Adam Pike. He's my commanding officer and the best Marine I've ever known." He pulled out his phone and added a contact to hers. "Promise me, Steph. Promise me you'll call him if you need anything." Something in his urgency made her stomach tighten. "Michael, is there something you're not telling me? Is this mission—" "Every mission has risks," he interrupted gently. "But I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you being alone. Adam Pike is someone I trust with my life. I need to know you'll trust him too, if it comes to that." "I promise," Stephanie said, though the name felt foreign on her tongue. They prayed together then, standing in their kitchen as the morning light grew stronger. Michael's voice was steady and sure. "Father, we commit this deployment to you. Guard Stephanie, comfort her, remind her constantly of your presence. Help her to feel your arms around her when mine can't be. And Lord, whatever lies ahead, let us both cling to you with everything we have. In Jesus' name, Amen, Stephanie whispered. One last kiss, long, deep, full of promise and love. One last embrace. And then Michael was gone, the door closing behind him with a finality that echoed through the empty house. Stephanie sank to the floor, her back against the door, and wept. But even as tears streamed down her face, she whispered the scripture Michael had left written on a note by the coffee maker. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Okay, Jesus, she prayed through her tears. I'm going to trust you, even when I don't understand, even when it hurts. I'm going to trust you. Scene 2. Forward Operating Base, Afghanistan. 3 months later. The desert heat was oppressive, even in the shade of the tactical operations tent. Sergeant Major Adam Pike stood studying satellite images, his ice-blue eyes scanning every detail with the intensity that had made him legendary in the Corps. At 36, Pike was what Marines called a lifer, devoted to the Corps, with a singular focus that bordered on obsession. 6'3", built like a weapon himself, with short-cropped dark hair graying at the temples, and a jawline that looked carved from granite, he was both respected and feared. He'd earned every commendation, survived missions that should have killed him, and carried scars, both visible and invisible, that told stories he never shared. Sir? Staff Sergeant Michael Cortez appeared at the tent entrance, his expression troubled. Cortez, what is it? Michael stepped inside, lowering his voice. Sir, I need to talk to you, off the record. Pike's eyes narrowed. In 3 years of working with Cortez, the younger Marine had never requested an unofficial conversation. Speak. Something's not right with this mission, sir. The intelligence feels wrong. The timing, the location, it's too convenient. Michael pulled out a folded paper. These supply routes we're supposed to secure. I did some checking. They don't match up with any of our known operations. Pike took the paper, his mind already racing through implications. You think the intel is compromised? I think someone wants us in a specific place at a specific time. And sir, Michael hesitated, something unusual for him. I need to ask you something. If anything happens to me... Nothing's going to happen to you, Pike interrupted, his voice like steel. Sir, please, if something happens, my wife Stephanie, she needs protection. I can't explain why, not yet, but I think I've stumbled onto something, and if the wrong people know that I know... He met Pike's eyes directly. I need your word, as a Marine and as a man. You'll look after her. Pike studied Cortez, the barely concealed urgency. The way his hand shook slightly, holding that paper. This wasn't paranoia. This was a good soldier's instinct, telling him something was very wrong. You have my word, Pike said solemnly. But you're going to survive this mission, and tell me what the hell is going on yourself. Michael smiled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. You know, sir, you remind me a lot of the centurion in Matthew chapter 8. A man who understands authority, who honors his word. You just need one thing he had. What's that? Faith in Jesus Christ. Pike's jaw tightened. They'd had this conversation before, or rather, Cortez had tried to have it, and Pike had shut it down. Cortez, I know. You've seen too much to believe in a good God. But sir, with respect, maybe you've seen too much not to need one. Michael's voice was gentle, without judgment. I pray for you every day. So does my wife. We believe God has a plan for you. Despite himself, Pike felt something shift in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation, almost like longing, but he crushed it down. He'd learned long ago that hope was a liability in his line of work. Save your prayers for the mission, Cortez. We roll out at 0500. Already prayed for the mission, sir, Michael said with a slight grin. The prayers for you are extra. After Cortez left, Pike stood alone in the tent, staring at the intelligence reports. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. And for the first time in 15 years, he found himself thinking something that felt dangerously close to a prayer. If you're real, keep my Marines safe. Scene 3. The Cortez home. Same night. Stephanie couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. in San Diego, which meant it was early afternoon in Afghanistan. She'd been feeling uneasy all day, a persistent anxiety that prayer seemed to ease only temporarily. She sat on her bed, Michael's Bible open on her lap. He'd left it for her, his handwriting filling the margins with notes and prayers. She traced her fingers over one passage he'd underlined heavily in Romans. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Lord, she whispered into the darkness, I don't know why I'm so afraid right now, but I'm asking you to cover Michael with your protection. Send your angels to guard him. Bring him home safe to me. And whatever is making me feel this way, if it's just anxiety, or if it's your spirit prompting me to pray, I'm going to pray until this feeling passes. She prayed for an hour, worshiping between petitions, declaring scripture over her husband. Finally, the heavy weight on her chest began to lift, replaced by a strange peace. Not the absence of concern, but the presence of God's comfort. As she finally drifted to sleep, she had no way of knowing that halfway around the world, her husband was about to face the worst night of his life. Part 2, Betrayal. Scene 4, The Ambush, before dawn. The explosion ripped through the night like the hand of God or the devil. Sergeant Major Pike was thrown 15 feet by the blast, his ears ringing, his vision swimming with stars and smoke. Training overrode shock. Assess, respond, survive. He rolled to his knees, rifle up, scanning for targets. The convoy was devastated. 3 vehicles burning, fire painting the desert in hellish orange and black. Automatic weapons fire erupted from the ridgeline. Not random spray, but precise, coordinated fire from multiple positions. Ambush! Defensive positions! Pike's voice cut through the chaos. But even as his Marines responded with disciplined fire, Pike's tactical mind was screaming the wrongness of it all. This wasn't an opportunistic attack. This was a planned execution. The explosives had been placed perfectly, to cripple without completely destroying, to pin them down for the kill. Someone had known exactly where they'd be and when. Cortez, status, Pike shouted, low crawling toward the second vehicle. Here, sir. Michael's voice came from behind the burning wreckage. Jenkins is hit bad. I need. The second explosion was smaller, but more precise. A targeted grenade, right where Cortez's voice had come from. No! Pike surged forward, ignoring doctrine, ignoring safety. He found Michael half buried in debris, blood already soaking his uniform from multiple shrapnel wounds. Michael coughed, blood flecking his lips. His eyes were already beginning to fade. And Pike, who'd seen death 1,000 times, knew with horrible certainty that these were his final moments. Medic! Pike screamed, but even as he applied pressure to the worst wounds, he knew. Sir, Stephanie, Michael's hand grabbed Pike's vest with surprising strength. They're going to come for her. She has... I sent her. What? Michael, what did you send her? Evidence. Didn't know it was. Thought it was just his eyes focused briefly, intensely. Sir, protect her. Promise. I promise. I swear it, Pike said fiercely. But you're going to make it, Marine. You hear me? That's an order. Michael's lips moved in what might have been a smile. Can't follow that one, sir. His hand fumbled at his neck, pulling off his dog tags and a small silver cross on a chain. Give these to Steph. Tell her I loved her every second. Tell her God is still good. Tell her trust in Jesus. Michael's eyes suddenly looked past Pike, seeing something beyond. His expression transformed. Absolute wonder, profound peace, even joy. I see him, Jesus. You really. His hand went slack, his chest stilled. Staff Sergeant Michael Cortez was gone. For a moment, just a moment, Sergeant Major Adam Pike, the Marine who'd seen everything and believed in nothing, felt something shatter inside him. This good man, this faithful man, this man who'd prayed for him and smiled at him and talked about Jesus like he was real and present, dead in his arms. But there was no time for grief. The firefight still raged. Pike gently closed Michael's eyes, took the dog tags and cross, and became once again the weapon the Corps had forged him to be. By the time reinforcements arrived, 30 minutes later, the ambush force was either dead or fled, and Sergeant Major Adam Pike was the only member of his team still breathing. Scene 5. Investigation. 3 days later. The investigation room was deliberately intimidating. Bare concrete walls, a single metal table, harsh overhead lights, designed to break down suspects. Adam Pike sat ramrod straight in his chair, his hands cuffed in front of him, his face expressionless. Across from him sat Colonel Warren and an Army CID investigator named Carson. "Let's go over this again, Sergeant Major," Carson said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "You were the only survivor of an ambush that killed 6 Marines, an ambush that occurred at a location only you and your team knew about. The location was in the mission brief. Multiple people had access. Multiple people didn't survive when everyone else died," Warren interrupted. "Multiple people's bank accounts don't show a deposit of $50,000 from an untraceable offshore account 2 days before the mission." Pike's eyes went flat and cold. "Sir, with all due respect, that's impossible. I don't have any offshore accounts." "We have the records, Pike. We have communications logs showing encrypted messages from your computer to known terrorist sympathizers. We have evidence that you supplied the exact route and timing to the enemy." Carson leaned forward. "The only question is why? Money? Ideology? Or maybe you just finally snapped after too many deployments?" For the first time, something flickered in Pike's eyes. Not guilt, but fury barely contained. "I did not betray my Marines. I did not betray my country. And I sure as hell didn't murder Michael Cortez." "Interesting that you single him out," Warren said. "Why him specifically? Period." "Because he was the best of us," Pike said, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "Because he was trying to warn me that something was wrong with the mission intel. Because he died in my arms, asking me to protect his widow." He met Warren's eyes directly. "Because whoever set this up wanted him dead, and they're using me to cover their tracks." "That's quite a conspiracy theory," Carson said dismissively. "It's the truth," Pike said. "The truth is you're a burned-out Marine who sold out his team. The truth is you're looking at court-martial, dishonorable discharge, and life in Leavenworth. The truth is that Michael Cortez told me his wife is in danger, Pike interrupted, leaning forward despite the cuffs. He said she has something, evidence of something. He died before he could tell me what. So ask yourselves this. If I'm guilty, why would I bring that up? Why would I give you a motive for why I'm being framed? Carson and Warren exchanged looks. Finally, Warren spoke. You'll be held pending further investigation. Don't bother trying to contact anyone. All your communications are monitored and restricted. As they led him to a holding cell, Pike's mind was racing. Michael had said Stephanie had evidence. Evidence of what? And if the people who'd orchestrated the ambush knew she had it, he had to reach her, had to warn her, had to keep his promise. But how, when he was locked in a cell, branded a traitor, with his honor, the only thing he'd ever really had, being systematically destroyed? Part 3, The Letters. Scene 6, The Notification. 1 week later. Stephanie was watering the small herb garden on her porch when the official car pulled up. She knew instantly, the way military spouses always know what it meant. Her hands went numb. The watering can fell, water spilling across the wooden planks. She stood frozen as 2 Marines in dress blues approached. The notification team, bearing the news that would shatter her world. Mrs. Cortez? The captain's voice was gentle but formal. I'm Captain Martinez. This is Chaplain Roberts. May we come inside? She couldn't speak, couldn't move. The chaplain, a kind-faced man in his 50s, took her arm gently. Let's sit down, ma'am. Inside, in the living room, where she and Michael had danced to wedding songs and prayed together, and planned their future, they told her that her husband was dead. Killed in action, died serving his country. They gave her Michael's personal effects, his dog tags, his cross, a flag folded with precision. But they didn't tell her the rest. Didn't tell her about the investigation, the accusations, the questions surrounding his death. Those would come later, in phone calls and official letters that would turn her grief into confusion and fear. When they left, Stephanie sat alone in the silence, holding Michael's cross so tightly it cut into her palm. She didn't cry, couldn't cry yet. She just sat, numb and disbelieving, until finally, words came. God. Her voice cracked. God, I don't understand. I prayed. I trusted you. Michael trusted you. And now he's gone? How is this your plan? How is this working for good? No answer came. Just silence. She looked at Michael's Bible, still on the coffee table where she'd left it that morning. Almost against her will, she reached for it, letting it fall open randomly. Her eyes fell on a passage in Isaiah, highlighted in yellow. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. I'm drowning, Stephanie whispered. I'm burning. Where are you? And then, quietly, like a whisper in her heart, I'm right here. I never left, and I never will. Scene 7. The Brig. Same day. Adam Pike sat on the edge of a narrow bunk in his cell, Michael's cross in his hand. They'd let him keep it. Personal effects from a fallen comrade weren't considered dangerous. He turned it over and over, remembering Michael's face as he died. That look of wonder, that peace. Even in death, the man had faith. Why? Pike said aloud to the empty cell. Or maybe to whatever God Michael had believed in. Why him? Why not me? I'm the one who's lived too long, seen too much. He had a wife. He had faith. He had hope. For the first time in 20 years, Adam Pike felt something he thought he'd killed in himself. Grief. Not just tactical regret at loss of personnel. Real, raw, agonizing grief for a good man gone too soon. And underneath it, something even more dangerous. Guilt. Not for what they were accusing him of. He was innocent of that. But for surviving when Michael hadn't. For all the times Michael had talked about Jesus, and he'd shut him down. For not telling Michael that his faith actually mattered. That it had cracked something in Pike's carefully constructed armor. He looked at the cross again. On the back, engraved in tiny letters, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son." "If you're real," Pike said quietly, feeling foolish but desperate, "then Michael was right about you. And if he was right about you, then you care about people keeping their promises. I promised him I'd protect Stephanie. So, help me do that, please." It wasn't much of a prayer, but it was honest. An idea began forming. He couldn't make phone calls. They were monitored. He couldn't have visitors. He was in restricted confinement. But he could write letters. Mail was censored but allowed. And there was no regulation against a Marine writing to a fallen comrade's widow. He could reach Stephanie, maybe warn her, at least let her know she wasn't alone. And in the process, maybe he could figure out what evidence Michael had mentioned, what danger she faced. Pike pulled out paper and a pen and began to write. "Dear Mrs. Cortez, you don't know me, but I knew your husband. My name is Adam Pike, and I was Michael's commanding officer. I'm writing to tell you what the official notifications won't. That Michael died a hero, that his last thoughts were of you, and that he made me promise to look after you. I know that right now you're drowning in grief. I know the world seems dark and cold and empty. But I want you to know that Michael faced death with courage and with a peace I've never seen before." His last words were about his faith in Jesus. He said, God is still good, even as he was dying. I don't have Michael's faith. I've seen too much, done too much to believe in a good God. But I saw something in your husband that I've never seen anywhere else. A light, a certainty, a joy that nothing could touch. Not war, not fear, not even death. Whatever you're facing, and I suspect it may be more than you realize, please know that you're not alone. Michael asked me to protect you, and I will keep that promise, no matter what it costs. With deepest condolences and respect, Sergeant Major Adam Pike, USMC. He mailed it the next day, not knowing it would be the first of many letters, not knowing that those letters would become a lifeline for both of them, a connection that would grow into something neither expected and both desperately needed. Scene 8. First response. 2 weeks later. Stephanie almost didn't open the letter from Sergeant Major Pike. She'd been receiving so much mail. Condolences, official notifications, questions from investigators that she didn't understand. It was overwhelming. But something about the handwriting, precise, controlled, masculine, made her pause. And when she read it, she cried for the first time since learning of Michael's death. Someone had been there. Someone had heard Michael's last words. Someone knew he'd been thinking of her. She read the letter 3 more times, then found herself reaching for paper to respond. Dear Sergeant Major Pike, thank you for writing to me. You can't know how much it meant to read Michael's last words. The official notification told me he died, but you told me how he died. With faith, with courage, thinking of me and of Jesus. That's the Michael I knew and loved. You said you don't have faith, that you've seen too much. I understand that, I think. Or at least, I'm trying to. Right now, I'm struggling with faith too. I prayed for God to protect Michael, and he didn't. At least not the way I asked. So I'm angry and confused and lost. But I'm also remembering something Michael used to say. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's choosing to trust God in spite of it. I'm trying to hold on to that, even when it feels impossible. You said Michael asked you to protect me. From what? No one has explained what happened, why he died, or what dangers he might have been worried about. Can you tell me more? I'm praying for you, Sergeant Major Pike. Michael always said he did, and I'm going to honor that by continuing his prayers. Whether you believe or not, I'm asking Jesus to watch over you and give you peace. With gratitude, Stephanie Cortez. When Pike received her letter 10 days later, he read it 5 times. Her handwriting was soft, feminine, with little flourishes that suggested an artistic soul. Her words were honest. No pretense, no false strength, just raw faith wrestling with doubt. And she was praying for him, just like Michael had. Something in his chest, something he'd thought was dead, stirred painfully to life. He wrote back immediately, being careful with his words, knowing military censors would read everything. Dear Stephanie, you asked what dangers Michael was worried about. I wish I could tell you everything, but my current situation prevents that. What I can say is that Michael suspected something was wrong with our last mission. He mentioned evidence, something he'd sent you, though he didn't say what. Have you received anything unusual from him recently? Any packages, letters, files? I need you to be very careful. Don't trust anyone who asks questions about Michael's work. Don't share information with anyone claiming to be from military intelligence without verifying their credentials. And please, if anything strange happens, anything that makes you uneasy, document it and keep those records safe. As for your prayers, thank you. I'm not sure I believe they'll make a difference, but I'm finding that I want them anyway. Michael had something I've never had. Certainty about what he believed and why. He used to talk to me about Jesus like he was a real person, someone he knew personally. I always thought it was foolish, but watching him die with that peace, that confidence, maybe I was the fool. You said you're angry at God right now. Michael would probably tell you that God's big enough to handle your anger. That faith isn't pretending everything's okay. It's being honest about your pain, while still choosing to trust Him. I don't have the right to say those things to you. But somehow I think Michael would want you to know that doubt doesn't disqualify you from faith. Maybe it's even part of it. Stay safe, Stephanie. Adam. Part 4. Growing Danger. Scene 9. The package, 3 weeks after Michael's death. The package arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Small, nondescript, addressed to Stephanie in Michael's handwriting but postmarked 3 days before his death. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a USB drive, a brief note, and a photo of the two of them from their wedding day. The note read, "My darling Steph, if you're reading this, something went wrong. I pray you never have to open this, but I'm sending it just in case." The USB drive contains files I accidentally discovered, communications, financial records, and mission plans that don't match official reports. I think someone high up in the chain of command is involved in something illegal, possibly treasonous. I've been trying to verify the information before reporting it, but if I don't make it back, this evidence needs to reach the right people. Do not trust anyone from my unit or command structure until you verify they're clean. The corruption goes high, I'm sure of it. If you need help, contact Sergeant Major Adam Pike. I trust him with my life and yours. Give him the files and let him handle it. I love you more than words can say. If I don't come home, know that every moment with you was a gift from God, and I'll be waiting for you in heaven. Forever yours, Michael. Stephanie's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the drive. Michael had known. He'd known something was wrong, known he was in danger, and he'd sent her evidence. Evidence that someone had killed him for. Suddenly, Adam Pike's warnings made terrible sense. Suddenly, the questions from investigators, questions that had seemed routine but now felt invasive, took on a sinister cast. She looked at the USB drive. Should she look at what was on it? Should she mail it to Pike immediately? What if someone was watching her mail? A noise outside made her jump. Just a neighbor's car. But her heart was pounding, her palms sweating. Was she being watched? Had someone already noticed the package? She needed to pray, needed to think, needed wisdom she didn't have. Jesus, she whispered, clutching the drive. I'm so scared. Michael trusted me with this. He trusted Pike. But how do I know who to trust? How do I know what to do? Please, God, show me, protect me, give me wisdom. A thought came, clear and strong. Write to Adam, tell him you have it, but don't send it yet. Wait for confirmation. It felt right. She sat down immediately and wrote, Adam, I received a package from Michael today. It contains what he mentioned, evidence of something very wrong. He said to trust you with it, to give it to you and let you handle it. But I'm scared. I don't know who's watching or listening. How do I know you're really who you say you are? How do I know Michael was right to trust you? I'm sorry for doubting, but Michael died for this information, and I need to be absolutely certain before I risk sending it to the wrong person. What should I do? Stephanie. Scene 10. The Revelation, Pike's cell. When Pike received Stephanie's letter, his blood ran cold. She had it. She had the evidence Michael had died to protect. And she just told him about it in a letter that military censors had already read. Damn it, he breathed. Within 24 hours, whoever was behind this would know Stephanie had the evidence. They'd come for her. And he was stuck in a cell, unable to protect her, unable to even warn her in time. He immediately requested an emergency meeting with his lawyer, a Navy JAG officer named Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. My client wishes to speak with Colonel Warren immediately, Chen said 2 hours later. He has information relevant to a civilian at risk. Warren arrived looking skeptical. What is it, Pike? Sir, Stephanie Cortez, Michael's widow, has evidence related to the ambush. Evidence that will prove I'm innocent and reveal who's really behind the attack. But if she has it, that means she's a target. She needs protection immediately. Warren's expression didn't change. What evidence? I don't know exactly. But Michael mentioned it before he died. He said he'd sent it to her. And now you've been in communication with her, feeding her stories about conspiracies and danger. Warren's voice was flat. Sounds like you're trying to manipulate a grieving widow into supporting your defense. Sir, with respect, you're denied. Mrs. Cortez is fine. If there were any credible threat, we'd know about it. This conversation is over. After Warren left, Pike turned to Chen. He's in on it, or covering for someone who is. Either way, Stephanie's in danger, and no one's going to help her. Chen looked troubled. Even if you're right, what can you do from here? Pike stared at the wall, his mind racing. Michael had trusted him. Michael had died asking him to protect Stephanie. And now she was in danger because of evidence that would clear his name and expose the real traitors. There was only one option, one that would destroy any chance he had of being exonerated through official channels. One that would make him a fugitive, hunted by the same corps he'd served his entire adult life. "I'm getting out," he said quietly. Chen's eyes widened. "Adam, no. Escape? That would prove you're guilty in everyone's eyes. You'd be throwing away your career, your freedom, everything. My career's already gone. My freedom means nothing if I break my word to a dying Marine." Pike met her eyes steadily. "Will you help me? I could be disbarred, court-martialed myself." "I know, and I'll understand if—" "I'll help," Chen interrupted. "Not because I'm sure you're innocent, though I'm starting to believe you are. But because if you're right, an innocent woman is in danger and no one's protecting her. That's not justice." They began to plan, speaking in low voices, knowing they had very little time before whoever was behind this made their move. Part 4. Growing Danger. Scene 9. The package, 3 weeks after Michael's death. The package arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Small, nondescript, addressed to Stephanie in Michael's handwriting but postmarked 3 days before his death. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a USB drive, a brief note, and a photo of the two of them from their wedding day. The note read, "My darling Steph, if you're reading this, something went wrong. I pray you never have to open this, but I'm sending it just in case. The USB drive contains files I accidentally discovered, communications, financial records, and mission plans that don't match official reports. I think someone high up in the chain of command is involved in something illegal, possibly treasonous. I've been trying to verify the information before reporting it. But if I don't make it back, this evidence needs to reach the right people. Do not trust anyone from my unit or command structure until you verify they're clean. The corruption goes high, I'm sure of it. If you need help, contact Sergeant Major Adam Pike. I trust him with my life and yours. Give him the files and let him handle it. I love you more than words can say. If I don't come home, know that every moment with you was a gift from God, and I'll be waiting for you in heaven. Forever yours, Michael." Stephanie's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the drive. Michael had known. He'd known something was wrong, known he was in danger, and he'd sent her evidence. Evidence that someone had killed him for. Suddenly, Adam Pike's warnings made terrible sense. Suddenly, the questions from investigators, questions that had seemed routine but now felt invasive, took on a sinister cast. She looked at the USB drive. Should she look at what was on it? Should she mail it to Pike immediately? What if someone was watching her mail? A noise outside made her jump. Just a neighbor's car. But her heart was pounding, her palms sweating. Was she being watched? Had someone already noticed the package? She needed to pray, needed to think, needed wisdom she didn't have. "Jesus," she whispered, clutching the drive. "I'm so scared. Michael trusted me with this. He trusted Pike. But how do I know who to trust? How do I know what to do? Please, God, show me, protect me, give me wisdom." A thought came, clear and strong. "Write to Adam, tell him you have it, but don't send it yet. Wait for confirmation." It felt right. She sat down immediately and wrote, "Adam, I received a package from Michael today. It contains what he mentioned, evidence of something very wrong. He said to trust you with it, to give it to you and let you handle it. But I'm scared. I don't know who's watching or listening. How do I know you're really who you say you are? How do I know Michael was right to trust you? I'm sorry for doubting, but Michael died for this information, and I need to be absolutely certain before I risk sending it to the wrong person. What should I do? Stephanie. Scene 10. The revelation, Pike's cell. When Pike received Stephanie's letter, his blood ran cold. She had it. She had the evidence Michael had died to protect. And she just told him about it in a letter that military censors had already read. Damn it, he breathed. Within 24 hours, whoever was behind this would know Stephanie had the evidence. They'd come for her. And he was stuck in a cell, unable to protect her, unable to even warn her in time. He immediately requested an emergency meeting with his lawyer, a Navy JAG officer named Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. My client wishes to speak with Colonel Warren immediately, Chen said 2 hours later. He has information relevant to a civilian at risk. Warren arrived looking skeptical. What is it, Pike? Sir, Stephanie Cortez, Michael's widow, has evidence related to the ambush. Evidence that will prove I'm innocent and reveal who's really behind the attack. But if she has it, that means she's a target. She needs protection immediately. Warren's expression didn't change. What evidence? I don't know exactly. But Michael mentioned it before he died. He said he'd sent it to her. And now you've been in communication with her, feeding her stories about conspiracies and danger. Warren's voice was flat. Sounds like you're trying to manipulate a grieving widow into supporting your defense. Sir, with respect, you're denied. Mrs. Cortez is fine. If there were any credible threat, we'd know about it. This conversation is over. After Warren left, Pike turned to Chen. He's in on it, or covering for someone who is. Either way, Stephanie's in danger and no one's going to help her. Chen looked troubled. Even if you're right, what can you do from here? Pike stared at the wall, his mind racing. Michael had trusted him. Michael had died asking him to protect Stephanie. And now she was in danger because of evidence that would clear his name and expose the real traitors. There was only one option. One that would destroy any chance he had of being exonerated through official channels. One that would make him a fugitive, hunted by the same corps he'd served his entire adult life. I'm getting out, he said quietly. Chen's eyes widened. Adam, no. Escape? That would prove you're guilty in everyone's eyes. You'd be throwing away your career, your freedom, everything. My career's already gone. My freedom means nothing if I break my word to a dying Marine. Pike met her eyes steadily. Will you help me? I could be disbarred, court-martialed myself. I know, and I'll understand if. I'll help, Chen interrupted. Not because I'm sure you're innocent, though I'm starting to believe you are. But because if you're right, an innocent woman is in danger, and no one's protecting her. That's not justice. They began to plan, speaking in low voices, knowing they had very little time before whoever was behind this made their move. Part 5. Escape and Pursuit. Scene 11. Breakout. 1 week later. The medical transport was the key. Pike had complained of severe chest pains, symptoms that could indicate a heart attack, and couldn't be ignored, not with a high-profile detainee. Chen had argued forcefully that inadequate medical response could be grounds for a lawsuit. The transport to the Naval Hospital gave Pike his window. It was small, dangerous, and depended on split-second timing. But he'd conducted operations on longer odds than these. When the transport stopped at a traffic light, 3 blocks from the hospital, Pike made his move. The guard's taser, appropriated during a carefully staged stumble. The door kicked open from the inside, with force enhanced by adrenaline and desperation. The crowd of civilians at a bus stop, providing cover as he disappeared into the city. It took them 17 minutes to realize he was gone. By then, Pike had changed clothes in a pre-positioned cache that Chen had arranged, acquired a vehicle she'd left with keys hidden under the seat, and was on the highway heading north towards San Diego. He was a fugitive now, a traitor in the eyes of the Corps he'd served for 18 years. Everything he'd built, every commendation and honor, every sacrifice, gone in an instant. But Michael's face, dying, peaceful, trusting, kept him driving. Stephanie's letters, honest, faithful, vulnerable, pushed him forward. He'd made a promise, and Adam Pike kept his promises, even when it cost him everything. Scene 12. The Watchers, Stephanie's house. Stephanie had felt uneasy for 3 days. Little things. The car parked across the street that didn't belong to any neighbor. Someone walking past her house multiple times. A sense of being watched even when she was inside. She'd followed Adam's advice from his letters. Documented everything. Varied her routines. Kept the USB drive hidden in a place no one would think to look. Inside a hollowed-out candle in her prayer corner. On Thursday evening, the unease became reality. Stephanie was washing dishes when she saw them through the kitchen window. 2 men in dark suits approaching her front door. They moved with military precision, and something about their eyes, cold, assessing, made her stomach drop. The doorbell rang. Every instinct screamed danger. She dried her hands slowly, praying under her breath. Jesus, protect me. Give me wisdom. Show me what to do. She approached the door, but didn't open it. Yes? Cortez, I'm Agent Morrison, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. He held up credentials through the window. They looked official, but Michael's warning echoed in her mind. Don't trust anyone. What is this about? We need to speak with you about your husband's death. May we come in? Do you have a warrant? A pause. Morrison's jaw tightened. No, ma'am. But we have questions about materials your husband may have sent you. There it was. They knew about the evidence. I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable speaking without a lawyer present. If you'd like to schedule an official interview. Mrs. Cortez, this is a matter of national security. Your cooperation would be appreciated. Then you can coordinate with my lawyer. She didn't have a lawyer, but they didn't need to know that. The second man, who hadn't spoken, stepped closer to the door. His hand moved toward his jacket, and Stephanie's heart nearly stopped. We really do need to come in, ma'am. This wasn't a request. It was a threat. Stephanie backed away from the door, her phone already in her hand. She dialed 911 as she heard them testing the lock. 911, what's your emergency? There are men trying to break into my house. They claim to be federal agents, but I don't believe them. I'm at 4247 Maple Street. The sound of the door splintering cut her off. Stephanie ran. Out the back door, through the small yard, over the fence into her neighbor's property. Behind her, she heard shouts, heavy footsteps. She'd never been athletic, never been brave. But terror gave her speed as she ran down the alley, her phone clutched in her hand, prayers tumbling from her lips. Jesus, help me. God, save me. Please, please, please. Headlights blazed at the end of the alley, a black SUV cutting off her escape. She spun, trapped between pursuers behind and the vehicle ahead. The SUV's door flew open. Get in. Now. The voice was deep, commanding, unfamiliar, but somehow, impossibly, Stephanie knew. Adam? Move! She didn't think. She ran and dove into the SUV. Before her door even closed, Adam Pike was accelerating, tires screaming as he whipped the vehicle around. Gunfire shattered the night. The rear window exploded. Stephanie screamed, covering her head as Adam drove with one hand, returning fire with the other. "Stay down," he commanded. They burst out of the alley, onto a main street. More gunfire. Adam took a corner at a speed that had them on two wheels, then accelerated onto the freeway. Stephanie looked up at the man driving. Even in profile, she could see he matched Michael's description. Tall, powerful, with a granite jaw, and eyes that missed nothing. But there was something else, a desperation, a fierce protectiveness that reminded her of Michael. "Are you hit?" Adam asked, eyes on the mirrors. "No, I don't think so. There's a first aid kit under your seat if you are." He took another turn, then another, weaving through traffic with precision that spoke of extensive training. Finally, after 30 minutes of evasive driving, he pulled into a parking garage downtown. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, his hands still gripping the wheel, his breathing controlled, but heavy. "Are they gone?" Stephanie whispered. "For now." He turned to look at her, and she saw exhaustion in those ice-blue eyes. "Mrs. Cortez, Stephanie, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't get there sooner. You saved my life." Her voice shook. "They were going to kill me." "Yes. No sugarcoating, no false comfort, just truth. We need to move again soon. They'll be searching. But first, do you have it? The evidence Michael sent you. It's at my house, hidden." Adam closed his eyes briefly, something like pain crossing his face. "Then we need to go back for it." "Back? But they're there." "Which means it's our only window. They'll secure the house, search it thoroughly. But right now, for a few minutes, it'll be chaos. Crime scene techs, local police, confusion. If we're fast and smart, we can get in and out." Stephanie stared at him. "You're insane." "Probably." A ghost of a smile. "Michael said I needed faith. Guess I'm learning." Scene 13. Recovery. The house. They approached Stephanie's house on foot, using neighbors' yards and shadows for cover. Adam moved like a predator, and Stephanie tried to copy his silence, his stillness. Her house was indeed chaos. Police cars, an ambulance, neighbors gathering. The two fake agents were gone, probably fled when real law enforcement arrived. "Where?" Adam whispered. "My bedroom. Prayer corner. White candle, hollowed out." He studied the house, the positions of officers, the sightlines. "I'll go. You stay here. It's my house. I know the layout in the dark. And I know how to avoid getting caught or killed. Michael trusted me with it. I'll get it." They stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Adam nodded slowly. "Together then. Fast and silent. If anything goes wrong, you run and don't look back. If anything goes wrong, we both run. Stephanie." "Those are my terms, Sergeant Major." Despite everything, Adam felt a flicker of respect. Michael had married a woman with steel beneath the softness. They moved during a shift change, slipping through the back door while officers rotated positions. The house was torn apart, cushions slashed, drawers emptied, everything destroyed in a frantic search. In the bedroom, Stephanie went straight to her prayer corner. The candle was still there, miraculously intact. She grabbed it, and they turned to leave. "Freeze!" A young police officer stood in the doorway, gun drawn, eyes wide. Adam put himself between Stephanie and the officer, hands raised. "Easy, we're not armed." "You're Pike. The fugitive Marine. The officer's hands shook slightly. Ma'am, step away from him. No, Stephanie said firmly. Ma'am, he's dangerous. He just saved my life from the men who really killed my husband. Please, you have to listen. Step away or I will shoot. Adam's voice dropped, calm and commanding. Son, I can see you're scared, but I'm not your enemy. The people who broke into this house tonight, they're not NCIS, they're not federal agents. They're here to silence Mrs. Cortez and destroy evidence of treason. If you take us in, she'll be dead within 24 hours. That's insane. Is it? Did you check their credentials? Did they wait for you to arrive? Or did they disappear the second real law enforcement showed up? The officer hesitated. Adam saw his opening. I'm going to reach into my pocket very slowly and pull out a name and number. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, Navy JAG. Call her. Verify my story. We'll wait right here while you do. It was a gamble. Chen's career was already at risk helping him escape. But she'd believe in justice enough to verify his story. The officer, hands still shaking, made the call. 2 minutes of terse conversation. Then he lowered his weapon. Commander Chen vouches for you. Says to get somewhere safe and call her. He looked between them. I'm going to walk away for 5 minutes. When I come back, you better be gone. Thank you, Stephanie said softly. They were back in the SUV in 4 minutes, driving toward an uncertain destination with evidence that could topple conspiracies and clear Adam's name, if they could survive long enough to reveal it. Part 6. Fugitives. Scene 14. Safe House, Abandoned Church. The church had been abandoned for 3 years, but it still held echoes of faith. Stained glass windows, dust-covered pews, a cross that caught moonlight and cast long shadows. Adam checked the perimeter twice before letting them settle in an old office behind the sanctuary. There was furniture still here, left by whoever had last served this congregation. Stephanie sat in a worn chair, finally allowing herself to shake. The candle, with its precious cargo, sat on the desk between them. Thank you, she said quietly, for coming for me, for keeping your promise to Michael. Adam leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his face half in shadow. I almost didn't make it in time. But you did. She met his eyes. Michael was right about you. He didn't know what I'd become to save you. A fugitive. A deserter in everyone's eyes. A hero, Stephanie corrected. Someone who kept his word even when it cost him everything. Adam laughed bitterly. Heroes don't break out of military custody. Heroes don't become criminals. Jesus spent time with criminals. He defended people the religious leaders called sinners. Seems to me you're in good company. Despite himself, Adam smiled slightly. You sound like Michael. I'll take that as the compliment it is. Stephanie picked up the candle. We should look at what's on this drive. See what Michael died protecting. Adam pulled out a laptop, one of Chen's contributions to his escape kit. They inserted the drive and began scrolling through files. What they found was damning. Communications between Colonel Warren and a defense contractor named Sentinel Solutions, discussing payment for classified information. Mission plans altered to move valuable equipment through specific routes. Routes where the equipment would be lost in attacks and later sold on black markets. Financial records showing millions flowing through offshore accounts. And most damning, the ambush that killed Michael had been orchestrated specifically because he'd discovered evidence of the operation. The attack hadn't been meant to succeed tactically. It was meant to eliminate witnesses and blame Pike. But one officer, with enough integrity to be a threat. Warren, Adam breathed. I served with him for 5 years. Trusted him. I'm sorry, Stephanie said. He killed 6 Marines, good men, for money. Adam's voice was quiet, but underneath it was a fury that made Stephanie's breath catch. Michael died asking me to protect you because Warren wanted this evidence destroyed. Then we make sure his death means something. We get this to people who can do something with it. That's easier said than done. Warren has connections everywhere. Military, government, intelligence agencies. We can't just walk into a police station. Then who can we trust? Adam thought for a moment. Chen. And there's a Marine I served with, retired now, working as an investigative journalist. Guy named Marcus Webb. If anyone believes us and know what to do with this, then we get it to him. Stephanie, you don't have to stay with me. I can arrange for you to go somewhere safe while I... No. Her voice was firm. Michael trusted me with this. It's my responsibility too. And, she hesitated, then continued. I meant what I said in my letters. I'm praying for you. I think God put us together for a reason, not just to expose this conspiracy, but for something else. Something we both need. Adam looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. In the dim light, she looked fragile, like a strong wind might blow her away. But there was steel in her spine, determination in her eyes. Michael's wife, a widow at 24, still choosing faith when everything had been taken from her. Why? He asked roughly. Why do you still believe? Michael died. Your prayers didn't save him. You're running for your life. How do you still have faith? Stephanie was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she admitted. Except, faith isn't about God doing what I want. It's about trusting He's good, even when I don't understand, even when it hurts. She looked at the cross on the wall. Jesus didn't come down from the cross. He stayed there. He suffered. He died. And then He rose. Maybe that's the point, that resurrection comes after death, not instead of it. That's a hard faith. Adam said, yes, but it's the only one that makes sense of suffering. Any other God would be too small, too easy. She smiled sadly. Michael used to say that a faith that doesn't cost you anything isn't faith. It's just wishful thinking. Real faith costs, but it's worth the price. Adam was silent, turning her words over in his mind. He'd spent 20 years believing faith was weakness, that belief in God was for people who couldn't handle reality. But Michael had been stronger than most men Adam knew, and Stephanie, grieving and hunted, had a courage he couldn't explain. Maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe faith wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the only real strength. Scene 15. The Journey, Highway 101. They drove through the night, heading north towards San Francisco, where Marcus Webb lived. Adam kept to back roads when possible, avoiding traffic cameras and checkpoints. Stephanie dozed fitfully in the passenger seat, waking at every sudden movement. When she slept, her face looked peaceful, younger, almost childlike. Adam found himself glancing at her more often than necessary, feeling something he'd thought died in Afghanistan, protectiveness that went beyond duty. She was beautiful, he realized, not in the obvious way that made men turn their heads, but in a quieter way. Soft features, expressive eyes, a gentleness that somehow persisted despite everything she'd endured. And she was mourning, grieving the man Adam had failed to save. The thought brought sharp guilt. He had no right to notice her beauty, no right to feel anything except obligation to a dead Marine's final request. You're thinking too loud, Stephanie murmured, eyes still closed. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't really asleep. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Too much adrenaline still. I know the feeling. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Stephanie spoke again. Tell me about Michael. What was he like with you, his commander? Adam wasn't used to talking about feelings, about people. But something in her voice, the need to hear about her husband, to collect memories like precious stones, made him try. He was the best kind of Marine. Followed orders, but thought for himself. Respected the chain of command, but wasn't afraid to question when something didn't feel right. The men would have followed him anywhere. He would have made a good officer someday. He would have made a great one. Adam paused. He talked about you constantly. My wife this, Stephanie said that. Some of the guys teased him about it, but I envied him. Envied him? For having someone. For having faith. For being so certain about what mattered. Adam's hands tightened on the wheel. I've spent my whole life serving the Corps. It was enough. It had to be enough. But watching Michael, seeing what he had with you and with God, it made me wonder if I'd missed something important. It's not too late, Stephanie said softly. To find faith? To find God. He's not hiding, Adam. He's been there all along, waiting for you to look. I don't know how, Adam admitted, the words difficult. I've done things, Stephanie. Things I can't take back. Things no good God would forgive. Jesus forgave the men who crucified him while they were still nailing him to the cross. That's how big his mercy is. She reached across the console, putting her hand over his. You're not too far gone. No one is. Her hand was warm, small over his scarred knuckles. Adam felt something crack in his chest. Some wall he'd built, brick by brick, over 20 years of war and loss. I don't know how to pray, he said, voice rough. Just talk to him, like you'd talk to anyone who loves you. No one's loved me in a very long time. That's not true. Michael loved you. I can see it in the way you honor his memory, keep his cross, fight to protect his widow. He loved you like a brother. Stephanie squeezed his hand gently. And God loves you. He made you. He knows everything about you. Every mistake, every wound, every moment of darkness. And he still loves you. That's who Jesus is. Adam drove in silence, but in his mind, tentatively, uncertainly, he tried something he hadn't done in decades. Jesus, if you're real, I need help. I don't know how to do this, any of this, but Michael believed in you. Stephanie believes in you. And I'm starting to think, maybe they see something I've been too blind or too stubborn to see. If you're there, if you care, help me, help us, please. It wasn't eloquent, it wasn't profound, but it was honest. And in the quiet darkness of the SUV, Adam Pike felt something he'd never felt before. Peace. Not the absence of danger. They were still fugitives, still hunted, but an underlying death. Certainty that he wasn't alone, that something or someone bigger than himself was present. I think I just prayed, he said, sounding surprised. Stephanie smiled. I know, I was praying too. Part 7. Revelation. Scene 16. Marcus Webb, The Truth Goes Public. Marcus Webb's apartment was a journalist's chaos. Papers everywhere, multiple screens running. The organized mess of someone chasing stories. Webb himself was in his 50s, grizzled, with sharp eyes that had seen too much and a cynicism born of years exposing corruption. But when Adam and Stephanie arrived at 3 a.m., showed him the evidence, and told him their story, his cynicism transformed into focused intensity. "This is Pulitzer level," he said, scrolling through files. "But it's also target on your back level. Warren has connections everywhere. The moment this goes public, we'll be safe," Adam finished. "The only reason to kill us is to keep the secret. Once it's out, they'll still want revenge. Let them try." Webb looked at Stephanie. "Mrs. Cortez, your husband was a hero. This story, his story, needs to be told right. I'll protect his memory while exposing the truth. You have my word." "Thank you," Stephanie said quietly. Webb worked through the night, and by morning, the story was uploaded to his news site, sent to major outlets, and backed up on multiple servers. There was no putting the genie back in the bottle. Within hours, it exploded across media. Military corruption, treason, Marines killed to hide illegal arms dealing. And the hero at the center, Staff Sergeant Michael Cortez, who died trying to expose it. By noon, warrants were issued for Colonel Warren's arrest. By evening, he was in custody, along with 3 other officers and 2 civilians from Sentinel Solutions. And by midnight, Adam Pike's name was cleared. The Marine he'd supposedly betrayed had actually been killed by the conspiracy Pike was now exposing. Prosecutors recommended immediate release and full exoneration. But Adam and Stephanie didn't know any of that yet. They were in a safe house Webb had arranged, watching the news coverage with something like shock. "It's over," Stephanie whispered. "Michael's death wasn't in vain." "No," Adam agreed. "He saved lives, exposed traitors, protected his country even in death." They sat in silence, processing. Then Stephanie started to cry. Not sad tears, but something else. Relief, release, grief that could finally be expressed now that survival wasn't the only priority. Adam did something that surprised them both. He pulled her into his arms, letting her cry against his chest the way Michael had probably done 100 times. It felt right and wrong simultaneously. Right to comfort her. Wrong because he wasn't Michael. Could never be Michael. "I'm getting your shirt all wet." "It's okay." He wanted to say more. Wanted to tell her that holding her felt like the first human contact he'd had in years that wasn't professional or violent. But the words wouldn't come. Stephanie looked up at him, her eyes red but clear. "What happens now?" "Now you go home, rebuild your life, move forward." "And you?" "I face the music, clear my name officially. Probably retire from the Corps. This kind of thing tends to make command uncomfortable, even when you're innocent." He tried to smile. Figure out what a 36-year-old ex-Marine does with the rest of his life. "You could do anything." "Could I?" Adam looked away. "I've been a weapon for 20 years. I don't know how to be anything else. Michael thought you could. He saw something in you worth praying for." Stephanie hesitated, then said, "I see it too." "What do you see?" "A man who keeps his promises, who sacrifices for others, who's starting to open his heart to God, even though it terrifies him." She smiled softly. "I see someone Michael would call friend, and someone I'm grateful to know." Adam met her eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding, connection, the first fragile thread of something neither could name yet. "Thank you," he said roughly, "for praying for me, for believing I could be more than I thought I was. Thank you for keeping me alive, For honoring Michael. She faltered, then pushed forward. For being someone I can trust in a world where trust is hard. The moment stretched, both of them aware they stood at a threshold. But Stephanie's husband had been dead only 2 months, and Adam was still figuring out what faith even meant. Some things, even good things, needed time. Needed time. Scene 17. Homecoming. San Diego, 6 months later. Stephanie stood in her rebuilt home. Rebuilt literally, after the damage from the break-in, and rebuilt metaphorically, as she'd slowly pieced her life back together. She'd given Michael a hero's burial once his body was released. The Marines had given full honors. Hundreds attended. The president sent condolences. But the real healing had come quieter, in prayer. In grief counseling at her church, in slowly learning that joy and sorrow could coexist. She'd also stayed in contact with Adam. Their letters continued, though now they could also call, text, video chat. The urgency of survival was gone, replaced by something gentler. Friendship. Understanding. A connection neither quite knew how to define. Adam had been fully exonerated and quietly retired from the Marines with honors. He'd moved back to San Diego, saying he wanted a fresh start somewhere that felt like it had possibilities. They'd had coffee twice, dinner once. Each time, Stephanie felt the connection growing, but also the weight of what-ifs and too-soons. She was healing, but healing took time. And then, on a Thursday afternoon, 6 months after Michael's death, Adam knocked on her door. "Hi," he said when she opened it. He looked different in civilian clothes, softer somehow, more uncertain. "I hope it's okay I stopped by." "Of course. Come in." He entered, looking around at the changes. "It looks good, better than before." "Thanks. It's been therapeutic, rebuilding." They sat in the living room, and Stephanie could sense Adam had something to say. She waited, patient. Finally, he spoke. "I've been going to church." "The one Michael attended, where you still go." Stephanie's eyes widened. "Adam, that's wonderful." "I sat in the back, listened, and 3 weeks ago I talked to Pastor David. Asked him about faith, about Jesus, about how someone like me could even approach God." Adam looked down at his hands. "Last Sunday, I gave my life to Christ, asked Jesus to save me, forgive me, make me new." Tears sprang to Stephanie's eyes. "Michael would be so happy. I keep thinking about that, about how he prayed for me, how he tried to tell me about Jesus. I wish I'd listened sooner. Wish I'd had the chance to tell him he was right." "He knows," Stephanie said with certainty. "I truly believe he knows." Adam nodded, then continued. "Being a Christian is strange. I feel different, lighter somehow, like something heavy I've been carrying is gone. But I also feel like I'm starting over, learning everything from scratch. That's what being born again means. You're a new creation. Pastor David said that too." Adam smiled slightly. "He's been helping me, teaching me. Reading the Bible it's not what I expected. Some of it's hard, but some of it feels like it was written specifically for me." They talked for an hour about faith, about what Adam was learning and discovering. Stephanie felt her heart warm, seeing his excitement, his genuine transformation. As he prepared to leave, Adam paused at the door. "Can I ask you something? Anything? Would you be willing to have dinner with me? Not as research or obligation or anything connected to Michael's memory, though I'll always honor that, but as 2 people who've been through something together and might want to see where friendship could go." Stephanie's heart skipped. She'd known this was coming, had felt it building, and she'd prayed about it, asked God for wisdom. "I'd like that," she said. "But Adam, I need to be honest. I'm not ready for anything more than friendship right now. Maybe not for a while." "I know, and I'm not asking for more. I'm new to faith, new to civilian life, new to thinking about anything beyond the next mission. I need time too," he smiled. "But I'd like to spend some of that time with you. If you're willing." "I'm willing." Part 8. Growth. Scene 18. Building friendship. 9 months later. The months that followed were sweet in their simplicity. Adam and Stephanie built a friendship first. Coffee after church, movies on Friday nights, long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Adam grew in his faith with an intensity that surprised everyone, including himself. He devoured scripture, asked 1,000 questions, wrestled with theology like he'd once wrestled with tactical problems. Pastor David became a mentor, guiding him through doubts and discoveries. Stephanie watched his transformation with joy and something else, a growing affection that both excited and frightened her. She still loved Michael, still missed him, but she was learning that the human heart was bigger than she'd thought, capable of holding both grief for what was lost and hope for what might come. They talked about it one evening as they sat on her porch watching the sunset. "I feel guilty sometimes," Stephanie admitted, "for being happy, for enjoying your company, like I'm betraying Michael." "I understand that," Adam said. "I feel guilty for noticing you as more than Michael's widow, like I'm dishonoring his memory. But I think Michael would want us both to live, to heal, to find joy again, even if it looks different than we expected." Adam turned to face her. "I loved Michael like a brother. I'll never forget him, never stop honoring what he meant to both of us. But Stephanie, I'm starting to realize I'm falling in love with you, and I don't think that diminishes what you had with him. I think it's its own separate thing." Stephanie's breath caught. She'd known. Of course she'd known. But hearing it said aloud made it real. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I lost Michael. Because loving someone means risking that pain again. Because I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive another loss." Adam reached out, taking her hand gently. "You are. You're the strongest person I know. But Stephanie, there are no guarantees in life. I could live to 90 or die tomorrow. So could you. Faith doesn't protect us from loss. It gives us someone to hold on to when loss comes." "When did you get so wise?" "Since I started reading Proverbs." He smiled. "But seriously, I'm not asking you to decide anything right now. I'm just telling you the truth. I love you. Not as a replacement for Michael, not out of obligation or guilt, but because you're funny and kind and beautiful and faithful. Because you challenged me to faith when I thought I was too broken. Because spending time with you is the best part of my days." Tears slicked down Stephanie's cheeks. "I love you too, Adam Pike. I do, but I need time still. To be sure. To know this is right and not just comfort or loneliness. Take all the time you need. I'll be here." Scene 19. The Question. 15 months after Michael's death. Spring came to San Diego with riots of color. Flowers blooming, trees budding, life renewing itself. Stephanie felt it in her soul too. A renewal, a slow unfurling of hope after the long winter of grief. She and Adam were officially dating now, though they took it slow. They'd kissed for the first time on her birthday. Tentative, gentle, both of them nervous as teenagers. It felt right in a way Stephanie hadn't expected. Different from Michael, but not wrong. Just different. Adam continued to grow in faith. He'd started leading a Bible study for veterans at church, sharing his testimony of how God had saved him from bitterness and despair. Men who'd never set foot in a church came because they respected Adam, stayed because they encountered Jesus. On a Saturday afternoon, Adam asked Stephanie to take a drive with him. They ended up at the church where she and Michael had married, where Adam had first encountered faith, where both of them had found healing. "Why are we here?" Stephanie asked as they walked through the empty sanctuary. "Because this place matters. To you, to me, to us." Adam led her to the front, where they stood before the cross. "I wanted to ask you something here, where God feels so present." Stephanie's heart began to race. Adam took her hands, his scarred fingers gentle around hers. "Stephanie Cortez, I love you. I love your faith, your strength, your kindness. I love how you pray for me, challenge me, make me want to be a better man. I love that you see who I'm becoming, not just who I was." He knelt, pulling out a simple ring, a single diamond on a silver band. "I know I'm not Michael. I'll never try to be. But I want to be your husband, your partner, your best friend. I want to build a life with you centered on Jesus and faith, and the kind of love that honors what you've survived, while looking forward to what God has planned." Stephanie was crying. Joy and sorrow and hope all mingled together. "Will you marry me?" Adam asked, his voice steady, but his eyes vulnerable. She thought of Michael, her first love, her young husband, the man who taught her so much about faith and life. She thought of his last words, his prayer that God would comfort her, his trust in Adam to protect her. And she knew, with certainty that could only come from God, that Michael would approve. That this wasn't betrayal, but redemption. That love was big enough to honor the past while embracing the future. "Yes," she said, voice breaking on the word. "Yes, Adam, I'll marry you." He stood, sliding the ring on her finger, then kissed her with a passion and tenderness that promised everything she'd hoped for. They held each other in front of the cross, both of them changed by loss, transformed by faith, ready to build something new on the foundation of all they'd learned. Part 8. Growth. Scene 18. Building friendship. 9 months later. The months that followed were sweet in their simplicity. Adam and Stephanie built a friendship first. Coffee after church, movies on Friday nights, long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Adam grew in his faith with an intensity that surprised everyone, including himself. He devoured scripture, asked 1,000 questions, wrestled with theology like he'd once wrestled with tactical problems. Pastor David became a mentor, guiding him through doubts and discoveries. Stephanie watched his transformation with joy and something else, a growing affection that both excited and frightened her. She still loved Michael, still missed him, but she was learning that the human heart was bigger than she'd thought, capable of holding both grief for what was lost and hope for what might come. They talked about it one evening as they sat on her porch watching the sunset. "I feel guilty sometimes," Stephanie admitted, "for being happy, for enjoying your company, like I'm betraying Michael." "I understand that," Adam said. "I feel guilty for noticing you as more than Michael's widow, like I'm dishonoring his memory. But I think Michael would want us both to live, to heal, to find joy again, even if it looks different than we expected." Adam turned to face her. "I loved Michael like a brother. I'll never forget him, never stop honoring what he meant to both of us. But Stephanie, I'm starting to realize I'm falling in love with you, and I don't think that diminishes what you had with him. I think it's its own separate thing. Stephanie's breath caught. She'd known. Of course she'd known. But hearing it said aloud made it real. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered, and it terrifies me. Why? Because I lost Michael. Because loving someone means risking that pain again. Because I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive another loss. Adam reached out, taking her hand gently. You are. You're the strongest person I know. But Stephanie, there are no guarantees in life. I could live to 90 or die tomorrow. So could you. Faith doesn't protect us from loss. It gives us someone to hold on to when loss comes. When did you get so wise? Since I started reading Proverbs. He smiled. But seriously, I'm not asking you to decide anything right now. I'm just telling you the truth. I love you. Not as a replacement for Michael, not out of obligation or guilt, but because you're funny and kind and beautiful and faithful. Because you challenged me to faith when I thought I was too broken. Because spending time with you is the best part of my days. Tears slicked down Stephanie's cheeks. I love you too, Adam Pike. I do, but I need time still. To be sure. To know this is right and not just comfort or loneliness. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Scene 19. The question. 15 months after Michael's death. Spring came to San Diego with riots of color. Flowers blooming, trees budding, life renewing itself. Stephanie felt it in her soul too. A renewal. A slow unfurling of hope after the long winter of grief. She and Adam were officially dating now, though they took it slow. They'd kissed for the first time on her birthday. Tentative, gentle, both of them nervous as teenagers. It felt right in a way Stephanie hadn't expected. Different from Michael, but not wrong. Just different. Adam continued to grow in faith. He'd started leading a Bible study for veterans at church, sharing his testimony of how God had saved him from bitterness and despair. Men who'd never set foot in a church came because they respected Adam, stayed because they encountered Jesus. On a Saturday afternoon, Adam asked Stephanie to take a drive with him. They ended up at the church, where she and Michael had married, where Adam had first encountered faith, where both of them had found healing. Why are we here? Stephanie asked as they walked through the empty sanctuary. Because this place matters. To you, to me, to us. Adam led her to the front, where they stood before the cross. I wanted to ask you something here, where God feels so present. Stephanie's heart began to race. Adam took her hands, his scarred fingers gentle around hers. Stephanie Cortez, I love you. I love your faith, your strength, your kindness. I love how you pray for me, challenge me, make me want to be a better man. I love that you see who I'm becoming, not just who I was. He knelt, pulling out a simple ring, a single diamond on a silver band. I know I'm not Michael. I'll never try to be. But I want to be your husband, your partner, your best friend. I want to build a life with you centered on Jesus and faith, and the kind of love that honors what you've survived, while looking forward to what God has planned. Stephanie was crying. Joy and sorrow and hope all mingled together. Will you marry me? Adam asked, his voice steady, but his eyes vulnerable. She thought of Michael, her first love, her young husband, the man who taught her so much about faith and life. She thought of his last words, his prayer that God would comfort her, his trust in Adam to protect her. And she knew, with certainty that could only come from God, that Michael would approve. That this wasn't betrayal, but redemption. That love was big enough to honor the past while embracing the future. Yes, she said, voice breaking on the word. "Yes, Adam, I'll marry you." He stood, sliding the ring on her finger, then kissed her with a passion and tenderness that promised everything she'd hoped for. They held each other in front of the cross, both of them changed by loss, transformed by faith, ready to build something new on the foundation of all they'd learned. Epilogue. 2 years later. Scene: the Pike home. Stephanie Pike, she still thrilled at the name, stood in the nursery of their home, setting up a crib. She was 6 months pregnant, glowing with joy. Adam appeared in the doorway, watching her with an expression of wonder that hadn't faded in the 2 years since they'd married. "Need help?" he asked. "Almost done, but you can talk to your daughter. She kicks when she hears your voice." Adam crossed the room, placing his large hand on Stephanie's belly. As if on cue, the baby kicked. "Hey, little one," he said softly. "Your mom and I have been talking. We've decided on a name." "Oh?" Stephanie looked up, surprised. They'd been debating names for weeks. "If it's okay with you, I want to name her Michelle, after Michael, a feminine version of his name." Adam's voice grew thick. "So that part of him lives on. So she'll grow up hearing stories about the hero she's named after. So we never forget." Fresh tears. These days, Stephanie cried at everything, spilled down her cheeks. "That's perfect. He would love that." And her middle name? Grace. Because that's what God gave us. Grace to heal, grace to love again, grace to build something beautiful from tragedy. "Michelle Grace Pike," Stephanie said, testing it out. "It's beautiful." They stood together, Adam's arms around Stephanie, his hand on their daughter. Through the window, they could see the small memorial garden they'd planted. White roses for Michael, forget-me-nots for the fallen Marines, a stone bench where they often sat to pray and remember. "I still talk to him sometimes," Stephanie admitted. "Tell him about us, about the baby, about how you lead Bible study and help veterans find Jesus. I think he'd be proud. I know he would." Adam kissed the top of her head. "I found something yesterday. One of the last letters I wrote him before the ambush. Want to hear it?" "Please." Adam pulled a worn paper from his pocket and read. "Cortez, you're relentless with this Jesus talk. But I'll admit something I've never told anyone. When I watch you pray before missions, I feel envious. Not of your religion, but of your certainty, your peace. Maybe someday I'll understand what you have. Until then, I'll settle for having you watch my 6. Pike." "He kept it," Adam said quietly. "It was in his personal effects, along with photos of Stephanie and his Bible. He kept a letter where I almost admitted I wanted faith. Because he never gave up on you. He knew God would reach you eventually. He was right." Adam turned Stephanie to face him. "About everything. About God, about faith, about you being someone worth protecting. Michael saved my life in more ways than one." Stephanie touched his face gently. "And you saved mine. That's what love does. It saves us, over and over again." They kissed, a promise and a benediction. Then Adam knelt beside her belly. "Michelle Grace," he said to his daughter, "you're named after a hero who gave everything for what mattered most. Your mama and I are going to raise you to love Jesus, serve others, and live with courage. We're going to tell you stories about Uncle Michael until you feel like you knew him. And we're going to teach you that God can bring beauty from ashes, joy from sorrow, and resurrection after death." The baby kicked again, and they both laughed. "She approves," Stephanie said. "Smart girl. Takes after her mother." The church was packed for Sunday morning worship. Adam and Stephanie sat near the front, her hand in his, both of them singing with the congregation. Pastor David took the pulpit and smiled at them before beginning. "Before we dive into today's sermon, I want to share a testimony. Brother Adam, would you come up? Adam stood, squeezing Stephanie's hand before walking to the front. He'd done this before, shared his story, but it never got easier. Vulnerability never did. Most of you know my story, he began. 3 years ago, I was a Marine who believed in nothing but duty and survival. I'd seen too much darkness to believe in light, too much death to believe in life, too much evil to believe in a good God. He paused, finding Stephanie in the crowd. She nodded encouragement. Then I met Staff Sergeant Michael Cortez. He was everything I wasn't. Joyful, faithful, certain. He prayed before missions, talked about Jesus like he was real. And he prayed for me every single day, even though I told him he was wasting his time. Adam's voice grew thick. Michael died in my arms. His last words were, "God is still good." And as he died, he saw something, someone, that brought absolute peace to his face. In that moment, I realized, whatever Michael had, it was real, and I wanted it. It took me months to finally surrender. Months of running from God while he patiently pursued me. But when I finally stopped running and started seeking, I found what Michael had been trying to give me all along. Jesus Christ. Salvation. Grace. A love that doesn't fail, even when everything else does. He looked around the congregation, his eyes landing on several veterans who'd started attending because of him. Some of you are where I was, skeptical, wounded, convinced you're too far gone for God to reach. You're not. If he can save me, and I've done things I'll never speak of, he can save anyone. That's the point of grace. That's the power of the cross. And some of you are grieving, like my wife was when I met her. You've lost someone precious, and you're angry at God for letting it happen. I understand that anger. But here's what I've learned. God doesn't waste our pain. He redeems it. He brings resurrection from death, not instead of death. The cross had to happen before Easter morning could come. Adam's voice strengthened with conviction. 3 years ago, I would have told you faith was weakness. Now I know it's the only real strength. 3 years ago, I thought I was too broken for God to fix. Now I know he specializes in broken things. 3 years ago, I was dead inside. Now I'm alive in Christ. If you're here today and you don't know Jesus, I'm telling you, he's real. He's here, and he's waiting for you to let him in. Don't wait like I did. Don't waste years running from the only one who can actually save you. He returned to his seat as the congregation applauded. Stephanie took his hand, tears streaming down her face, pride and love shining in her eyes. During the altar call, 5 people came forward, including 2 of the veterans from Adam's Bible study. As Adam prayed with them, leading them to Christ, he felt Michael's presence like a blessing. Not literally, he knew Michael was with Jesus now, but spiritually, knowing that his friend's prayers were still bearing fruit, still changing lives. This is what you died for, Adam thought. Not just to expose corruption, but to plant seeds of faith, seeds that are still growing. Later that night, Stephanie kissed Adam's cheek. Come to bed. Michelle's kicking up a storm, and I think she wants her daddy to sing to her. Adam smiled, standing and pulling Stephanie close. What should I sing? How about Amazing Grace? Seems appropriate. They walked to the bedroom together, Adam's hand on Stephanie's belly, both of them humming the hymn that had become their anthem. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Later, as Stephanie slept beside him, Adam lay awake, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The war, the betrayal, the death of a good man, his own brokenness and rage, the letters that became a lifeline, the slow, painful, beautiful journey to faith. If someone had told him 3 years ago that he'd be lying in bed next to Michael Cortez, widow, married to her and expecting a child, transformed by the same Jesus Michael had talked about, he would have thought they were insane. But God specialized in impossible things, in resurrection, in redemption, in taking the worst moments of human existence and somehow, mysteriously, weaving them into something beautiful. Thank you, Adam prayed silently. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for Michael's prayers. Thank you for Stephanie's faith. Thank you for second chances and new beginnings. Thank you for grace I don't deserve, but desperately need. Help me to be the husband she deserves, the father Michelle needs, the man Michael believed I could be. Not in my strength, I don't have enough, but in yours. And Jesus, tell Michael I said hi. Tell him his prayers worked. Tell him I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving he was right about you. Amen. Peace settled over him like a blanket. Adam Pike, former weapons specialist, combat veteran, self-made island, had finally found home. Not in a place, but in a person. Not in his own strength, but in surrender to the one who'd pursued him even when he was running. He was loved. He was saved. He was new. And that made all the difference. Author's note. This story is dedicated to all military families who've experienced loss, to those who've found faith in darkness, and to the truth that God's grace is sufficient for every circumstance. No matter how deep the pain, how heavy the grief, or how impossible the situation, Jesus is still Lord. God is still good, and hope is still real. If you're struggling today, know this. You are loved beyond measure by a God who understands suffering because he endured the cross. Your pain matters. Your grief is valid, and there is healing available in Christ. Not quick fixes or easy answers, but genuine transformation that comes from surrender